Kyle's voice, once the old lady dies, this place is ours. Jade doesn't need to know anything. Rachel's voice, and if she doesn't die conveniently? Kyle's voice, she's 63 with high blood pressure. Nature will take its course. Besides, Jade's already talking about nursing homes. Says mom's getting confused, forgetful. We'll just help that narrative along. Barbara's voice, get out. Kyle's voice, Mom, let me explain. Barbara's voice, you have 1 hour to pack your things and leave. All of you. Out of my house. Hello, my beautiful family. This is Auntie Katie, and I am so grateful you're here with me today. Before we begin this story, I want to take just a moment to speak a blessing over you. Wherever you are right now, whether you're driving to work, folding laundry, cooking dinner, or just taking a moment for yourself, I pray that peace finds you today. I pray that you recognize your own worth, that you see your own strength, and that you remember, you are not required to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. May wisdom guide your decisions, may courage fill your heart, and may you always know when to stop giving to people who only know how to take. Amen. Now, let me tell you about a woman named Barbara. A woman who gave everything to her son, only to discover he was counting down the days until she died. If you've ever been used by someone you loved, if you've ever felt invisible in your own home, if you've ever realized too late that to someone else, you were nothing more than a bank account with a heartbeat, this story is for you. And trust me, by the end of this, you're going to see what happens when a manipulator underestimates the woman he tried to break. So go ahead right now and hit that subscribe button. Ring that notification bell. Because the stories I bring you here on Voice of Auntie Katie are about real people, real pain, and real justice. And this one? This one is going to stay with you. Drop a comment right now and tell me, would you have seen the warning signs earlier than Barbara did? Let's talk about it. Now, let me take you back to where this nightmare began. It was a Tuesday morning, and Barbara Holloway was doing what she'd done every Tuesday morning for the past 18 months, folding laundry for her son's family. Again, the kitchen table was covered with tiny pink dresses that belonged to her granddaughter Lily. Small t-shirts that belonged to her grandson Owen. Kyle's work shirts. Jade's yoga pants. Even Francine's delicate blouses that required hand washing. Barbara's phone rang, wedged between her shoulder and ear as she continued folding. Hello? Mom, we need to talk about the living situation. It was Kyle. Her son. Her only child. And his voice had that quality, that rehearsed, flat quality he used when he'd already made a decision and was just going through the motions of informing her. Barbara's hands stilled on a tiny pink dress. Of course, honey. What's going on? Jade, the kids, and her mother are going to move into the house. It's tight, but we've agreed it's the best solution for everyone. The house. My house, Barbara thought. The 3-bedroom ranch she'd bought 30 years ago with her late husband Gerald. The house where Kyle had learned to ride a bike in the driveway, where they'd celebrated every birthday and holiday, where Gerald had taken his last breath in their bedroom. When were you planning to tell me about this? Her hands had completely stopped moving now. I'm telling you now, Mom. Look, you knew this was coming. We've been staying in that cramped apartment for 2 years. You said we could move in when we were ready. Barbara closed her eyes. She had said that. During one of those late-night phone calls when Kyle was crying about money. When Lily was sick and they couldn't afford the copay. When Jade's mother Francine lost her job and needed a place to stay. When the bills piled up and Kyle's voice cracked with desperation. She'd said a lot of things in moments of weakness. In moments when she confused being needed with being loved. I meant when we discussed it together, Kyle. Not when you decided on your own. We're adults, Mom. We don't need permission. There was a pause. Barbara could hear him breathing, could almost see him in her mind, probably standing in that cramped apartment she'd been paying rent on for months, probably looking at Jade for approval. Besides, Kyle continued, his voice softer now, almost gentle, you're getting older, Mom. Having family around will be good for you. Getting older, Barbara was 63 years old. She still worked part-time at the library. She volunteered at the community center every Thursday. She took yoga classes 3 times a week, the same yoga classes Jade attended, though Jade always positioned her mat on the opposite side of the room, but to Kyle, she was already slipping into irrelevance. Her only value was the roof over her head and the checkbook in her purse. "When are you planning this move?" Barbara asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "This weekend." Jade's already started packing. For days that he was giving her 4 days to prepare for her life to be invaded. "Kyle, thanks, Mom. I knew you'd understand. We'll see you Saturday morning. Love you." The line went dead. Barbara stood there in her kitchen, phone still pressed to her ear, staring at the pile of laundry on her table. Their laundry. That she washed every week. That she folded with care. That she delivered to their apartment in neat baskets because Jade always said their washing machine was broken and they couldn't afford to fix it. The same washing machine Barbara had paid to have repaired 3 times in the past year. She set the phone down slowly. Picked up one of Lily's pink dresses. Held it against her chest, and for the first time in 18 months, Barbara Holloway allowed herself to wonder, when did I become so small? Saturday morning arrived like a storm Barbara had seen coming but couldn't prevent. At 8 a.m., a moving truck pulled into her driveway. Barbara recognized it immediately, the same company she'd paid a deposit for 3 months ago when Kyle said they needed to put some things in storage. That was the story, anyway. Storage for temporary things. Turned out, the temporary things were their entire lives, and the storage unit was her house. Jade emerged from the passenger seat like a general preparing for battle. She wore expensive athleisure, the kind Barbara had seen in the mall windows with price tags that made her wince, and her hair was pulled back in a perfect ponytail. She had her phone in one hand and a clipboard in the other. "Living room furniture goes to the garage," Jade called to the movers, not even glancing at Barbara standing in the doorway. "Spare bedroom, all of that can be donated. We're bringing our own. The garage needs to be cleared out completely. We'll need space for both cars." Barbara watched her own furniture being declared obsolete, the couch where she'd nursed Kyle through chicken pox. The rocking chair Gerald had built with his own hands. The bookshelf that held 30 years of memories. All of it, garage. Donate. Trash. A second car pulled up, and Francine stepped out. Jade's mother was a woman who had never learned the difference between confidence and entitlement. She swept toward the house as if she owned it, designer sunglasses perched on her head, lips pursed in immediate disapproval. "This neighborhood is too far from my salon," were her first words. "No, hello. No, thank you for letting us stay. Just complaint. Where's my room?" Francine continued, not waiting for an answer. "I'll need good lighting. And the bathroom better have a bathtub. My back requires soaking." Barbara opened her mouth to respond, but Francine had already pushed past her into the house. Kyle appeared last, carrying boxes marked kitchen. "Hey, Mom," he said, giving her a brief, distracted kiss on the cheek. "Where do you want these, Kyle?" "Those are my..." Jade's reorganizing. "You know how she is. Wants everything efficient." He disappeared inside before Barbara could finish her sentence. By noon, Barbara's home had been transformed. Gerald's photographs, the ones that had hung in the hallway for 28 years, were taken down. Replaced with Jade's modern art prints. Abstract shapes and harsh colors that meant nothing and felt like everything. Barbara's grandmother's china cabinet, the one piece of furniture she'd begged them not to touch, was moved to the garage to make room for an enormous television. "We need the space," Jade explained, not really explaining anything. "And honestly, Barbara, that cabinet is a bit dated. You'll thank me later." The guest room, where Barbara's sister Patricia stayed when she visited, was claimed by Francine. She moved in with an impressive amount of luggage, immediately installing a lock on the door. "I value my privacy," Francine announced. Then, with a pointed look at Barbara, "I assume you do too?" Barbara wasn't given a key to that lock. By Sunday evening, less than 48 hours after the invasion began, Barbara was a stranger in her own home. Every room spoke a different language. Every corner held someone else's things. Every surface had been wiped clean of her history. She found Kyle in what used to be her sanctuary, the small sunroom where she'd read every morning with her coffee. He'd found her there, sitting on the floor, crying quietly. For a moment, something flickered across his face. Guilt, maybe. Recognition of what he was doing to her, but then it was gone, replaced by a familiar irritation. Mom, this is hard for everyone. We're all making sacrifices. Barbara looked up at him through tears. What exactly are you sacrificing, Kyle? He didn't answer. Just patted her shoulder the way you'd pat a confused child, then walked away to help Jade set up their bedroom, the master bedroom. The one Barbara had shared with Gerald for 28 years. The room where he'd died in her arms, where she'd held his hand and promised to keep living, to keep going, to not let grief consume her. That room now belonged to Kyle and Jade because we need the space for the kids. That night, Barbara moved into the sunroom. It was barely big enough for the twin bed Kyle had hauled down from the attic. The mattress smelled like dust and old memories. The single window looked out onto the backyard, where Gerald's workshop still stood, empty and waiting for hands that would never return, but it was hers. At least for now. Barbara lay on that narrow bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to them above her. Footsteps in her bedroom. Laughter. The sound of the shower running in her bathroom, and she thought, how did I get here? The first month was a masterclass in systematic degradation. Jade reorganized everything. The kitchen was first. Barbara came down one morning to find all her dishes, the everyday ones she'd used for 30 years, boxed up and sitting by the garage door. Your way of arranging things was inefficient, Jade explained, not looking at Barbara as she unpacked her own dishes. Expensive white plates with gold trim. Studies show this method reduces prep time by 30%. Barbara watched her own kitchen become unrecognizable. Jade, I can't find my. If you can't find something, just ask me. I have a system. The living room was next. Jade redecorated entirely, using money from Barbara's credit card, the one Kyle had asked to borrow just for emergencies. New throw pillows. New curtains. New coffee table books about architecture and minimalist design that no one would ever read. Barbara's collection of Reader's Digest magazines, accumulated over 40 years, disappeared. Those were dated, Jade said when Barbara asked. I donated them. You're welcome. The bathroom was Francine's domain. Her products took over 3 shelves: expensive face creams, serums, toners with unpronounceable names. Barbara's modest toiletries were relegated to one corner. A note appeared on the mirror one morning, written in Francine's looping handwriting, please ask before using my face creams, they're expensive. Barbara stared at that note. She'd paid for those creams. She'd handed Francine her credit card when Francine complained about needing proper skincare at my age. But she said nothing. The demand started small, then grew. Monday, a grocery list appeared on the counter. Specific brands, all organic, estimated cost $400. Barbara's weekly budget was $150. Tuesday, meal prep requests. I need breakfast by 7, lunch packed by 8, dinner at 6. No gluten, no dairy, no nightshades. And make enough for everyone. Wednesday, a cleaning schedule. My room needs vacuuming daily. My bathroom needs deep cleaning twice weekly. My laundry must be separated by fabric type. Francine never said please. Never said thank you. She'd snap her fingers when she wanted Barbara's attention, leave dishes wherever she finished eating, and treat Barbara like hired help. Worse, hired help gets paid. Kyle was barely present. He'd leave for work at 7 a.m., claiming he wouldn't be home until 9 p.m. But Barbara saw his car at the gym at 3 p.m. Saw him at the coffee shop at 5 p.m., laptop open, relaxed. He wasn't working. He was avoiding. When he was home, he'd collapse on the couch Barbara had bought, in front of the television she was paying cable for, eating the food she'd cooked. Never helping with dishes. Never helping with the kids. Never acknowledging her existence, unless he needed something. Mom, can you pick up my dry cleaning? Mom, Jade needs you to watch the kids tomorrow. Mom, the car needs an oil change. Can you take care of that? Yes. 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 Barbara said yes to everything because somewhere deep inside, she still believed that if she was helpful enough, useful enough, necessary enough, they might love her. The cruelest part wasn't what they did to Barbara, it was what they did to Lily and Owen. In the first week, the children were still hers. 8-year-old Lily would run to Barbara after school, backpack bouncing, face bright. Grandma, can we bake cookies? The chocolate chip ones you make? 5-year-old Owen would bring Barbara his drawings, elaborate scribbles that she'd admire and tape to the refrigerator. Look what I made, Grandma. It's you and me and a dinosaur. Those moments were light in the darkness. Proof that love still existed in this house. But Jade couldn't allow it. Week 2, Lily approached Barbara with cookie ingredients in her small hands. Grandma, I found the chocolate chips. Can we? Lily, don't bother Grandma. She's tired. Jade appeared in the doorway, voice sharp. Lily's face fell. But Grandma's not, I said no. Grandma needs rest. Barbara stood from her chair. I'm not tired, Jade. I'd love to bake with, Lily, go to your room. Now, the subtext was clear. Grandma is too old, too fragile, too irrelevant. Week 3, Owen brought Barbara his math homework. Grandma, can you help me? I don't understand this problem. Barbara's heart swelled. Of course, sweetheart. Let me see, Owen, Grandma doesn't understand the new methods. Jade appeared again, always appearing. Let me show you the right way. Owen looked confused. But Grandma always helps. Not anymore. The math has changed. Grandma's way is old-fashioned. The words hit Barbara in the chest like bullets. Old-fashioned. Outdated. Wrong. Week 4 brought the complete transformation. Lily walked past Barbara in the hallway without speaking. Owen played video games, didn't show his drawings anymore. When Barbara offered to read them a bedtime story, Mom says you're too old-fashioned, Lily said, her voice uncertain, like she was repeating words she didn't understand. We don't need you, Grandma, Owen added, and his voice was clearer, more confident. He'd learned the lesson faster. Barbara sat alone in her sunroom that night, staring at the wall, and realized she'd lost her grandchildren while they were still living in the same house. By the second month, the children barely acknowledged her existence. And no more hugs. No more I love you, Grandma. No more requests for help or time together. Barbara had become furniture. Just another fixture in the house that used to be hers, and the cruelest part? They were right there. 10 feet away. Behind walls she could hear them through, living their lives, being a family, just not with her. Auntie Katie, we're going to pause here for just a moment. I need you to think about what we've just heard. Barbara gave everything, her money, her home, her dignity, and in return, she was erased from her own life. But here's what Kyle and Jade didn't know, Barbara was documenting everything. And what she was about to discover would change everything. Before we continue, I need you to hit that like button if this story is resonating with you. And drop a comment. Have you ever been made to feel invisible by your own family? Let's talk about it, because you are not alone. Next, we're going to hear about the conversation that changed Barbara's life, the one she overheard that revealed just how far Kyle and Jade were willing to go. Subscribe to Voice of Auntie Katie so you don't miss what happens next, because I promise you, what Barbara does when she discovers their plan will leave you cheering. My beautiful family. Until then, remember, you are worth more than what you can provide. You are worth more than your bank account. And you are never too old to reclaim your life. This is Auntie Katie, and I'm so grateful you're here. Auntie Katie, welcome back, family. In part 1, we watched Barbara lose everything, her home, her dignity, her grandchildren. But what she was about to discover would transform her from victim to warrior. Let's continue. It was a Monday evening when the final piece of Barbara's patience shattered. She stood at the kitchen sink, washing dishes. Their dishes. From their dinner. A dinner she hadn't been invited to eat. They'd gathered in the dining room, Kyle, Jade, Francine, Lily, and Owen, while Barbara cleaned up. That's what Jade called it. cleaning up. As if Barbara was staff. She could hear them laughing through the wall. Could smell the roasted chicken she'd cooked. Could feel her stomach growling because she hadn't eaten since breakfast. The kitchen door swung open. Kyle walked in carrying a stack of envelopes. He didn't greet her. Didn't ask how she was. Just dropped the envelopes on the counter next to her wet hands. "Mom, can you handle these? Things are tight with the move and everything." Barbara dried her hands on a dish towel. Picked up the envelopes one by one. Electric bill, $340. Up from her usual $120. Francine's space heater ran constantly. Water bill, $200. Up from her usual $80. Jade took 40-minute showers twice a day. Cable and internet, $250. The premium package Jade needed for her online yoga classes, property tax, $1,800. The quarterly payment she always dreaded, total, $2,590. And that was on top of what she already paid each month: mortgage, $1,400. Insurance, $300. Groceries, $600. Her pension was $2,100 a month. "Kyle, I'm already covering the mortgage, the insurance, and most of the groceries." "I can't." She didn't get to finish the sentence. "Can't or won't?" Jade appeared in the doorway. She always appeared at the perfect moment, like she'd been waiting just outside, listening for weakness. Owen sat on her hip, using him like a shield. The innocent child as prop in her manipulation. "You have Gerald's life insurance money," Jade continued, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "You have your pension. We have 2 children to raise and Francine's medical expenses." Then came the question designed to destroy: who needs it more? The words hung in the air between them, heavy and poisonous. Kyle stood there, silent. Not defending Barbara. Not defending himself. Just waiting for her to cave. Like she always did, Barbara looked at the bills in her hands. Looked at her son, avoiding her eyes. Looked at Jade's satisfied smile. "I'll take care of it," Barbara heard herself say. Her voice sounded flat. Defeated. Like it belonged to someone else. Jade's smile widened. "Thank you, Barbara. We knew you'd understand." They left her standing at the sink. Water still running. Dishes still dirty. Bills in her shaking hands. That night, Barbara couldn't sleep. The walls were too thin. She could hear them above her footsteps in her bedroom, laughter, the television playing some show she couldn't identify, living their lives. In her house. On her money. At 11 p.m., she did something she hadn't done since Gerald died. She opened her laptop and looked at her finances with clear, unbiased eyes. For 2 years, she'd avoided this. After Gerald passed, she'd just paid bills as they came, never analyzing, never questioning. It hurt too much to see their careful savings without him there to discuss them. But tonight, Jade's question burned in her mind: who needs it more? Barbara needed to see the truth in numbers. She started with the most recent charges, then worked backward. Apartment rent Kyle couldn't pay, $1,200 per month for 18 months. $21,600. Car repairs for Kyle's car, $2,100. Car repairs for Jade's car, $2,100. Medical bills, Lily's asthma medications, Francine's conditions, $3,100. Birthday parties for Lily and Owen, elaborate events Barbara hadn't planned but had paid for, $2,800. Private school tuition for Lily that Jade insisted was essential, $9,000 for the year. The wedding ring Kyle bought Jade on Barbara's credit card, promising to pay back, $3,500. That promise was 2 years old now, gathering dust like everything else. Kyle said. Emergency loans that were never repaid, $2,800. Barbara's hands trembled as she wrote the final number on a piece of paper. $47,000, $47,000 in less than 2 years. Gerald's life insurance policy had been $80,000. Their nest egg from 30 years of marriage. The money that was supposed to carry Barbara through her retirement, through her old age, through the years when she could no longer work. Kyle had consumed more than half of it in 18 months, and what had she gotten in return? A room smaller than a closet. A job as unpaid maid and cook. The systematic erasure of her identity. The loss of her grandchildren's affection, and now, apparently, plans for her death. Barbara closed the laptop. Sat in the darkness of her tiny sunroom. Felt something inside her crack, not break, crack, and through that crack, something cold seeped in. Clarity. A memory surfaced. Gerald, in their bedroom, 3 days before he died. His hand in hers, his voice weak but urgent. Barbara, promise me something. Anything. Don't let anyone take advantage of your kindness. Kindness isn't weakness, but it can be exploited. Know when to stop giving. She'd promised. She'd lied, but that was about to change. 3 days later, on a Thursday afternoon, Barbara came home early from the library. A headache pulsed behind her eyes, the kind that signaled a migraine approaching. She needed to lie down in a dark room. The house should have been empty. Jade had taken the kids to soccer practice. Francine had her weekly salon appointment. Kyle was supposedly at work. Barbara had a rare moment of peace ahead of her, but as she walked through the front door, she heard voices. Coming from upstairs. From the master bedroom, her bedroom, male and female voices, intimate and low. Barbara should have called out. Should have announced her presence. Should have made noise, but something stopped her. Something in the tone, secretive, urgent, forbidden. She found herself at the bottom of the stairs, hand on the railing, holding her breath. The voices became clearer when Kyle's voice. Does it matter? A woman's voice. Not Jade's. Younger, breathier, unfamiliar. Rachel, we've been careful for 6 months. If Jade finds out, you'll do what you always do. Lie. You're good at it. Barbara's hand tightened on the railing. 6 months. Her son had been having an affair for 6 months. Under her roof. In her bed. The bed she'd shared with Gerald. Then came Kyle's laugh. That laugh Barbara knew from his childhood, before life hardened him, before he learned to see people as resources instead of human beings. The laugh broke her heart more than the words. What about your mother? Rachel asked. Barbara's entire body went rigid. What about her? Kyle's voice carried through the floor. She's not going anywhere. She signed the house over to me last month. The wall became the only thing holding Barbara up. Papers. She'd signed papers. Kyle had brought them to her while she was making dinner, distracted, tired. He'd said something about refinancing. Better interest rate. Estate planning. Tax purposes. She trusted him because he was her son. Because she'd raised him to be honest. Because she was a fool. Once the old lady dies, Kyle continued, his voice casual, like discussing the weather, this place is ours. Jade doesn't need to know anything about us, and if she doesn't die conveniently? Rachel's voice held amusement. Kyle's answer came quickly, like he'd thought about this. Rachel, she's 63 with high blood pressure. Nature will take its course. Besides, Jade's already talking about nursing homes. Says mom's getting confused, forgetful. We'll just help that narrative along. Barbara didn't remember climbing the stairs. Didn't remember her hand on the doorknob. Didn't remember turning it. But suddenly she was standing in the doorway of her bedroom, staring at her son tangled in sheets with a woman who looked barely 30. Both of them froze. Kyle's eyes went wide. Rachel grabbed the sheet to cover herself. For a long moment, nobody moved. Barbara looked at her son. Really looked at him. She saw past the face she'd kissed as a baby. Past the boy she'd raised alone after Gerald died. Past the man she'd sacrificed everything for. She saw the stranger wearing her son's face. The parasite that had hollowed out her boy and left only greed and cruelty. Mom, Kyle started, reaching for his pants. Barbara held up her hand. The universal gesture stopped. Kyle's mouth closed. Get out, Barbara said. Her voice didn't sound like her own. It was cold. Flat. Final, Mom, let me explain. You have 1 hour to pack your things and leave. All of you. Jade, Francine, the children. Out of my house. Rachel tried to slide out of bed, sheet wrapped around her. Mrs. Holloway, this isn't. You don't speak. Barbara didn't even look at Rachel. The woman wasn't worth her attention. Her eyes stayed locked on Kyle. You forged documents to steal my house. Kyle opened his mouth. Barbara's hand stopped him. You're having an affair under my roof. In my bed. The bed I shared with your father. Kyle tried to step forward. Barbara stepped back. You've been planning for me to die so you can cash in. You and Jade have been telling people I'm confused, forgetful, setting up the narrative to put me in a home. Mom, you're taking this out of context. You've taken everything from me. My money. My home. My dignity. My grandchildren. Barbara's voice remained eerily calm. But you made one mistake, Kyle. He stared at her, calculation already working behind his eyes. What's that? Barbara pulled her phone from her pocket. Held it up. The red recording dot was still visible on the screen. You underestimated me. Kyle's face went through several emotions in rapid succession: confusion, realization, fear, then rage. You recorded us? That's illegal, single-party consent state. I checked. Barbara's voice was ice. Every word you said is admissible in court. Rachel grabbed her clothes and ran. Smart woman. She understood when a situation was beyond saving. Kyle took a step toward Barbara, his face twisted with anger. You'll regret this, old woman. I'll tell everyone you're senile. That you're making things up. That you need to be in a home for your own safety. Barbara looked at her son, the stranger pretending to be the boy she'd raised, and felt the last thread of maternal love snap. Try it, she said quietly. Then turned her back on him and walked away. Down the stairs. Out the front door. To her car. Behind her, she heard Kyle's roar of frustration. The sound of something hitting the wall let him destroy things. They weren't his things to destroy, not anymore. Barbara drove to the Marriott downtown. She'd passed it 1,000 times but never been inside. It looked expensive, the kind of place Gerald would have said was too fancy for folks like us. But Gerald wasn't here. And Barbara was done being folks like us. She walked to the front desk, put down Gerald's credit card, the one she'd kept for emergencies, and said, I need your nicest room. For at least a week. The clerk, a young woman with kind eyes, noticed Barbara's shaking hands. Is everything all right, ma'am? Barbara looked at her. Really looked at her. Saw genuine concern from a stranger while her own family had shown her nothing but contempt. Everything is about to be, Barbara said. Room 847. 8th floor. Corner suite with a view of the city. Barbara ordered room service, the first time in her life she'd ever done such a thing. Steak, medium rare. Roasted vegetables. A glass of red wine. She took a hot shower with no one banging on the door demanding their turn. Put on the hotel bathrobe that smelled like lavender and felt like clouds, sat on a bed that was hers alone. And made the phone calls that would change everything. First call, her sister Patricia in Chicago. Patricia answered on the first ring. Barb? You never call this late. What's wrong? I left. Silence. Then, thank God. Are you safe? I'm safe. Patricia, I need help. Anything. What do you need? A lawyer. The best one you know. I know exactly who to call. Patricia's voice was sharp, focused. Her name is Ruth Saunders. Specializes in elder abuse and family law. She's expensive, but she's worth every penny. And Barb? Yes. She'll answer tonight. I'm calling her right now. 20 minutes later, Barbara's phone rang. Mrs. Holloway? This is Ruth Saunders. Patricia told me to expect your call. Tell me everything. Barbara talked for 45 minutes. Ruth listened without interrupting, asked sharp questions, took notes. Do you have the recording? Ruth asked. Yes, did they know you were recording? No. Is that legal? In your state, yes. Single-party consent. That recording is admissible evidence. What else do you have? Barbara thought about the laptop in her car. The spreadsheet with every dollar she'd spent. Financial records. Every payment, every loan, every expense for 2 years. $47,000. Ruth was quiet for a moment. Mrs. Holloway, we have a strong case. But I need to warn you, they're going to fight back. Hard. They'll claim you're incompetent, that you promised them the house, that you're a vindictive old woman punishing your son for moving on with his life. Let them try. Good. Meet me tomorrow morning at 9. We have work to do. Barbara hung up. Made one more call. The bank. She left a message on the after-hours line requesting an urgent meeting about potentially fraudulent documents. Then she lay back on the hotel bed and, for the first time in 18 months, slept peacefully. The next morning at 8 a.m., the bank manager called. Mrs. Holloway, we received your message. Can you come in immediately? Is something wrong? That's what we need to discuss. We were actually planning to call you today. Barbara's stomach dropped. Why? The transfer documents your son submitted have been flagged by our fraud detection system. There are irregularities. What kind of irregularities? The signature doesn't match your signature on file. It's close, but our system detected discrepancies. We haven't processed anything yet. Barbara's knees nearly gave out. The house was still in her name. The money was still under her control. Kyle's plan hadn't worked. She had time. She had leverage. She had rage. I'll be there in 30 minutes, Barbara said. Ruth Saunders' office was on the 15th floor of a glass building downtown. The waiting room was all modern furniture and abstract art. Success on display. Ruth herself was a woman in her 50s with steel gray hair cut in a sharp bob. She wore an expensive navy suit and no wedding ring. A woman who'd chosen career over everything else. A woman who won. Mrs. Holloway. Ruth shook Barbara's hand firmly. Come in. Coffee? Please. They sat across from each other at a polished conference table. Ruth had a legal pad in front of her, a pen in her hand, and eyes that missed nothing. Tell me everything again. I want to hear it when you're not in crisis mode. Barbara told the story. The phone call. The invasion. The humiliation. The $47,000. The overheard conversation. The forged documents. Ruth took notes in neat, precise handwriting. Didn't show shock or surprise. Just processed information. When Barbara finished, Ruth set down her pen. The affair establishes a pattern of deceit. Good. The forged documents are a felony. He could go to prison for fraud. Ruth looked at Barbara over her reading glasses. Is that what you want? Barbara thought about it. Really thought about it. No, she said finally. I don't want him in prison. Why not? Because I'm not trying to become what he is. Someone who destroys families. I want justice, not revenge. Ruth smiled. The first time she'd smiled. I can work with that. Here's what we're going to do. Auntie Katie, family, we're going to pause here again. Barbara has gone from victim to warrior in a matter of days. She has evidence. She has a lawyer. She has fire in her belly, but Kyle and Jade aren't going down without a fight. If you're invested in this story, hit that subscribe button right now. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment and tell me, do you think Barbara should show Kyle mercy, or should she go for complete justice? Next, we're going to see the legal battle, the community backlash, and Barbara's final confrontation with her son. And I promise you the ending is going to satisfy your soul, beautiful family. Until then, remember, it's never too late to fight back. It's never too late to reclaim your dignity. And you are never, ever too old to become the hero of your own story. This is Auntie Katie, and I am so proud of each and every one of you. Ruth Saunders didn't waste time. By Friday afternoon, they'd filed a restraining order. By 5 p.m. that evening, a sheriff's deputy was pulling up to Barbara's house. Barbara watched from across the street, exactly where Ruth had told her to stand. You need to see their faces, Ruth had said. You need to witness the moment they realize they've lost. The deputy knocked on the door. Kyle opened it wearing gym clothes, proof he hadn't been at work like he'd claimed. The deputy handed him the papers. Barbara watched Kyle's face as he read. Watched a drain of color, then flush red with anger. This is garbage. Kyle shouted, loud enough for Barbara to hear across the street. She can't do this. The deputy's voice was calm, professional. Mr. Holloway, you have 72 hours to remove your belongings from the property. After that, anything remaining will be considered abandoned. Jade appeared at the door. What's going on? She read over Kyle's shoulder. Her perfectly made-up face twisted with rage. This is our house, Kyle said. According to county records, the deputy interrupted, the property belongs to Barbara Holloway. The transfer documents submitted by Mr. Holloway are under investigation for fraud. Jade's mouth opened and closed. No sound came out. Francine burst through the door, arms already full of designer clothes. This is illegal. I have rights. We have a lease. There's no lease on file, ma'am, the deputy said. This is a civil matter. You have 72 hours. Behind them, Barbara could see Lily and Owen's faces in the window. Confused. Scared. Her heart cracked. But the steel held it together. This wasn't about the children. This was about survival. Kyle looked up. His eyes scanned the street until they found her. Their gazes locked across the distance. For a moment, Barbara saw her little boy. The one who'd cried when his goldfish died. The one who'd told her she was the best mom in the world. But then he blinked, and the stranger returned. Kyle mouthed one word, why? Barbara mouthed back 2 words, 47,000. His face contorted with confusion. He didn't understand. Didn't see the connection between his theft and her response. Barbara turned away. Got in her car. Drove back to the hotel. She didn't need him to understand. She just needed him gone. The next 72 hours were war. Saturday morning, Barbara's phone showed 47 missed calls from Kyle. 23 from Jade. 15 from Francine. She blocked all of them. At noon, Kyle's grandmother called, his father's mother, a woman Barbara had always gotten along with. Barbara, what have you done? Kyle says you've lost your mind. He's worried about you. Barbara's voice was steady. Did he tell you he forged my signature to steal my house? Silence on the other end. Did he tell you he's been having an affair? That he's planning to put me in a nursing home so I'll die conveniently? More silence. I didn't think so, Barbara said, and hung up. Sunday morning, she went to church. The first time in months. Kyle had always needed her on Sundays for childcare. Whispers followed her down the aisle. Kyle had been busy. The story was already spreading. Barbara had lost her mind. She'd kicked out her loving family over nothing. She was confused, possibly senile, definitely unstable. During the sermon, Pastor Mitchell spoke about family conflicts and looked directly at Barbara. Sometimes, he said, we let pride damage our most important relationships. We must learn to forgive. Barbara realized Kyle had gotten to him first. After the service, 3 women approached her with concerned faces. Barbara, we heard you're having some difficulties. Kyle is so worried about you. Have you considered talking to someone? A therapist, perhaps? The narrative was clear, she was mentally unstable. Exactly what Kyle had warned her he would do. Barbara smiled politely. Thank you for your concern. I'm actually doing better than I have in years. She walked away before they could respond. Monday morning, Ruth called with news. They've hired a lawyer. We received notice this morning. What kind of lawyer? Family law specialist. They're going to file for incompetency within the next few weeks. Barbara's hands tightened on the phone. How soon? They're moving fast. Probably within 10 days. But Barbara, we're ready. We have the recording. We have the financial records. We have the bank's fraud report. And I'm lining up witnesses who can testify to your mental clarity. Who? Your employer at the library. Your yoga instructor. Your doctor. Your sister. People who interact with you regularly and can confirm you're sharp as a tack. Barbara exhaled slowly. What do I do until then? Live your life. Visibly. Go to work. Go to yoga. Be seen being competent. And Barbara? Yes, document everything. Every call, every text, every person who approaches you. They're building a narrative. We need to build a stronger one. The incompetency hearing was set for 3 weeks later. Kyle's lawyer was an older man named Richard Foster. Expensive suit, practiced smile, the kind of attorney who made good money keeping wealthy people out of trouble. He filed a petition claiming Barbara was suffering from age-related cognitive decline, that she was making irrational financial decisions, and that she needed a guardian appointed for her own protection, the proposed guardian, Kyle Holloway. Ruth's response was devastating. She submitted the recording of Kyle and Rachel. The bank's fraud report. Barbara's complete financial records showing systematic exploitation. Medical records from Barbara's doctor confirming perfect cognitive function, and testimonies. So many testimonies. Patricia flew in from Chicago. My sister has been sharper than most people half her age her entire life. What she's been is too generous, not too confused. Barbara's library supervisor, Mrs. Holloway, manages complex cataloging systems, helps patrons with research, and never makes mistakes. If anything, she's more organized than her younger colleagues. Her yoga instructor, Barbara, is one of my most dedicated students. She learns new poses quickly, follows complex sequences, and helps other students. There's nothing wrong with her mind. Her doctor, I've been Mrs. Holloway's physician for 15 years. Her cognitive function is excellent. Her only health issue is mild hypertension, well controlled with medication. The hearing was held in family court on a Wednesday morning. Judge Patricia Miller was a woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and a reputation for seeing through manipulation. Kyle's lawyer presented first. Your Honor, Mrs. Holloway has exhibited alarming changes in behavior. She's cut off financial support for her family without explanation. She's filed false fraud claims. She's isolated herself from loved ones. These are classic signs of cognitive decline. He called Kyle to testify. Kyle sat in the witness box looking concerned, caring. The devoted son.my mother has always been generous, he said, voice trembling slightly. But lately she's become paranoid, accusatory. She's convinced everyone is trying to steal from her. We're worried about her safety. Ruth's cross-examination was surgical. Mr. Holloway, how much money have you received from your mother in the past 2 years? I don't know the exact amount. She's always been generous. Does $47,000 sound accurate? Kyle shifted in his seat. I never asked her to. How many times have you visited your mother without asking for money? Silence. Mr. Holloway, please answer the question I don't keep track of. Is it true you forged your mother's signature on property transfer documents? That's not. I was trying to help her with estate planning. Is it true you're having an extramarital affair? Kyle's lawyer objected. Relevance, Your Honor. It's relevant to establishing pattern of deception, Ruth countered. I'll allow it, Judge Miller said. Kyle's face flushed red. That has nothing to do with, answer the question, Mr. Holloway. Yes, but, no further questions. Then it was Barbara's turn. She walked to the witness stand with her head high. Hands steady. Voice clear. Ruth guided her through her story. The $47,000. The systematic humiliation. The overheard conversation about waiting for her to die. Kyle's lawyer tried to trip her up during cross-examination. Mrs. Holloway, isn't it true you promised your son he could live in your house? I said he could stay temporarily during a financial crisis. Not move in permanently and claim ownership. Isn't it true your daughter-in-law was just trying to help you by reorganizing your home? She erased 30 years of my life and charged me for the privilege. Isn't it possible you misheard the conversation between your son and his friend? I have a recording. Would you like to hear it? The lawyer paled. No further questions. Judge Miller called a recess. 1 hour to review the evidence. Barbara sat in the hallway with Ruth and Patricia, hands clasped together, trying not to think about what would happen if she lost. If she lost, Kyle would control everything. Her money. Her house. Her life. He could put her in a home. Could isolate her completely. Could wait for her to die while spending her money. We're going to win, Ruth said quietly. The evidence is overwhelming. How can you be sure? Because Judge Miller has seen this before. She knows a greedy child when she sees one. When they returned to the courtroom, Judge Miller's face was stern. I've reviewed all evidence submitted. I've heard testimony from both parties and multiple witnesses. My ruling is as follows. Barbara held her breath. The petition for guardianship is denied. Mrs. Barbara Holloway is clearly in full possession of her mental faculties. Her decisions, while painful for her family, are rational and within her legal rights. Kyle jumped to his feet. Your Honor, this isn't. Sit down, Mr. Holloway. I'm not finished. Judge Miller looked directly at Kyle, her gaze hard. Furthermore, I find the evidence of financial exploitation compelling. Mrs. Holloway has been systematically drained of her resources by family members who showed no genuine concern for her welfare. The forged documents constitute fraud, which I'm referring to the district attorney's office for potential criminal prosecution. Kyle's face went white. Mr. Holloway, you have 30 days to negotiate a repayment plan with your mother for the $47,000 you've taken from her. If you cannot reach an agreement, this court will impose one. Additionally, the restraining order stands. You are to have no contact with your mother unless she initiates it. The gavel came down with a sound like thunder. Kyle's lawyer immediately requested a private conference. Within an hour, they'd negotiated a settlement. Kyle would repay the $47,000 at $500 per month for the next 7 years and 10 months. He would sign a document relinquishing any claim to Barbara's estate. He would maintain a distance of at least 500 feet unless Barbara contacted him first. In exchange, Barbara wouldn't pursue criminal charges. As Kyle signed the papers, his hand shaking with rage, he looked at Barbara one last time. She saw her little boy for just a fraction of a second. The child who'd held her hand. Who'd said, I love you, Mommy, in a voice like sunshine. Then he blinked, and the stranger came back. I hope you're happy, Kyle said, voice cold. You've destroyed your own family. Barbara met his gaze without flinching. No, Kyle. You did that all by yourself. A year passed like seasons, changing slowly at first, then all at once. Barbara moved back into her house after having it professionally cleaned. She put Gerald's photographs back on the walls. Brought her grandmother's china cabinet in from the garage. Turned the master bedroom back into her sanctuary. The sunroom became a reading nook again. Comfortable chair. Good light. Peace. She redecorated slowly, carefully, choosing things she loved instead of things others demanded. The house felt like hers again. Truly hers. She never heard directly from Kyle after the settlement. But Patricia kept her updated. Kyle and Jade had separated. The affair had come out, and Jade had taken the children to her parents in Ohio. Kyle saw them one weekend a month, driving 6 hours each way. Rachel was long gone. Smart woman had known when to run. Kyle lived in a small apartment now, working 2 jobs to cover his debts and the monthly payments to Barbara. Francine had moved in with another daughter. Barbara heard she was making that family just as miserable. The checks came every month like clockwork. $500. Barbara deposited each one without emotion. Sometimes she felt guilty. Wondered if she'd been too harsh. Too unforgiving. On those days, she looked at Gerald's photograph on the mantel and remembered his words, know when to stop giving. That she'd finally learned. Barbara was 64 now. She worked at the library 3 days a week. Took yoga 4 times a week. She'd moved up a level. Volunteered at the animal shelter on Saturdays. She'd made new friends. Real friends. Eleanor from yoga. Janet from the library. Women who valued her for who she was, not what she could provide. She'd traveled too. Last month, she'd taken that trip to Maine she'd been planning. Saw the coast. Ate lobster. Stayed in a bed and breakfast where she was the only guest and the owners treated her like family. She'd learned something important: being alone wasn't the same as being lonely. She was alone now. But she was also free. And that freedom was worth everything she'd lost. Last week, something unexpected arrived in the mail, not the usual check. An actual letter. Handwritten. Kyle's familiar handwriting on the envelope. Barbara let it sit on her kitchen counter for 3 days. Walked past it multiple times. Thought about throwing it away unopened, but curiosity won. She opened it on a Saturday morning while drinking coffee in her sunroom. Mom, I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't deserve it. But I need you to know that I understand now what I did. Not just the legal stuff, but everything. The way I used you. The way I made you feel invisible in your own home. Jade left me. Took the kids to her parents. I see them 1 weekend a month. Lily asked about you last time. Asked where Grandma went. I didn't know what to tell her. I'm not asking to come back. I know that bridge is burned. But I wanted you to know that I'm sorry. Really sorry. And that you were right to do what you did. I hope you're happy, Mom. I hope you're finally living for yourself. Kyle. Barbara read it twice. Folded it carefully. Put it in a drawer, not in the trash. But not on display either. Maybe one day she'd respond. Maybe one day the anger would fade enough to see if anything was worth salvaging. But not today. Not yet. Today, she had a pottery class. Tomorrow, she was meeting Patricia for brunch. Next week, she was taking a cooking class she'd always wanted to try. She was 64 years old, and she was finally learning to live for herself. Barbara stood in her sunroom, looking out at the garden where Gerald's workshop still stood. The morning sun painted everything gold. She thought about everything she'd lost. Everything she'd fought for. Everything she'd gained, and she smiled. Auntie Katie, and that, my beautiful family, is Barbara's story. My name is Barbara Holloway. My son tried to steal my house, my money, and my future. Instead, I stole back my life. And I'm not sorry. Because here's what Barbara learned, what I hope you learn too. Love should never have a price tag. If you have to buy someone's affection, it was never real. Family isn't automatic. It's not guaranteed by blood or biology. Family is built through respect, through genuine care, through showing up not just when you need something, but when someone else needs you, and there is no age limit on reclaiming your life. Barbara was 63 when she finally said no. 63 when she finally fought back. 63 when she finally chose herself. It's never too late. If you're in Barbara's situation right now, if you're being used, exploited, made to feel invisible in your own life, I want you to hear this. You are worth more than what you can provide. You are worth more than your bank account, your house, your ability to solve other people's problems. You are valuable simply because you exist. And you deserve to be loved for who you are, not for what you have. Setting boundaries isn't selfish. Protecting yourself isn't cruel. Saying no isn't a betrayal. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is stop enabling the people who are destroying themselves, and you, with their greed. Barbara's son had to lose everything to finally understand what he'd done. Some people need to hit rock bottom before they can climb back up. That's not your responsibility to manage. Your responsibility is to yourself. No, I need something from you, family. If this story touched your heart, if it made you think, if it gave you courage, hit that like button right now. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Maybe it's a friend who's being taken advantage of. Maybe it's a parent who's sacrificing too much. Maybe it's you, and you need to hear this story again tomorrow. Drop a comment and tell me, what would you have done in Barbara's situation? Would you have forgiven Kyle? Would you have fought harder? I read every single comment, and your perspectives matter. Subscribe to Voice of Auntie Katie if you haven't already. Every week, I bring you stories about real people facing impossible situations and finding the strength to survive. Stories about betrayal and redemption. About pain and healing. About losing everything and discovering you had the power inside you all along, because that's what life is, isn't it? A series of choices. A series of moments where we decide, will I keep giving? Or will I finally take back what's mine? Barbara chose herself. And look at her now, free, happy, living the life she always deserved. You can make that choice too. Remember, people will take everything you give and ask for more. You have to decide when to stop giving. Gerald knew it. Barbara learned it. Now you know it too. I'm Auntie Katie, and I am so grateful you spent this time with me today. May you know your worth. May you recognize when you're being exploited. And may you have the courage to walk away from anyone who sees you as less than the precious, valuable, irreplaceable person you are. Until next time, family, take care of yourself. Because sometimes, you're the only one who will. God bless you all.